Most people see this face and think of childhood, innocence, and happiness. But for the police in Hong Kong in 1999, this smiling plush toy became the face of something far darker. It began when a 14-year-old girl named Ai Yi walked into a police station, trembling. She claimed she was being haunted, not by a movie monster, but by the ghost of a woman she had watched die in a cramped apartment just weeks before. The officers were skeptical until she mentioned a specific address: 31 Granville Road. And she mentioned a toy, a giant mermaid-themed Hello Kitty plushie. When investigators finally breached the door of Unit 3B, the smell of decay was so thick it stained their clothes. Inside, they found the doll. It was leaking a dark, oily fluid, and when they cut the stitches, what they found inside wasn't stuffing. It was something no one in that room would ever forget. Today, we go inside those 30 days of madness. We'll look at the 3 men responsible, the chilling ghost story that cracked the case, and a legal verdict that still sparks outrage today. But I have to warn you, the reality of what happened in that apartment is a warning of what people are truly capable of. To understand the tragedy, we have to look at the woman behind the headlines. Fan Man Yi was only 23 years old. She was a mother, someone whose young son was waiting for her to come home, unaware that this would be the last time he would ever see her. In the fast-paced world of Hong Kong's nightlife, she was just trying to survive. But in 1997, a small mistake led to a fatal connection. She met 34-year-old Chan Lok Pui, a mid-level enforcer for a local triad gang. Fan reportedly stole a wallet from him containing about $500. In Chan's world, this wasn't just a debt, it was an insult to his status. He began charging her astronomical interest. By early 1999, that small theft had ballooned into a $20,000 debt. She was caught in a trap with no escape. On March 17, 1999, the nightmare began. Chan and 2 other men, the volatile Leung Shing-cho and the youngest Leung Wei-lun, spotted her in the street. They forced her into a van and took her to Granville Road. At 23, her life was only just beginning. But for these 3 men, she was no longer a human being. She was a target. And this is the point where this case stops being about debt and turns into something far more disturbing. The apartment was small, cramped, and filled with the haze of methamphetamine, and in that drug-fueled environment, any sense of human empathy completely vanished. For the next 30 days, the apartment became a laboratory of pain. The 3 men, led by the ringleader Chan, subjected Fan to acts of torture that are difficult to even describe. They kept her tied up, sometimes hanging her from the ceiling beams, treating her like an object for their twisted amusement. The violence was systematic. They used metal bars and everyday items to inflict damage, often while they sat just feet away, eating takeout and watching television, as if nothing was happening. This psychological detachment is perhaps the most chilling part. They didn't just hurt her, they stripped away everything that made her human. The 14-year-old witness, Ai Yi, was forced to watch much of this. She described a scene of pure madness where the men would laugh while Fan pleaded for her life. For 720 hours, she endured a level of suffering that no one should ever face. By mid-April, Fan Man Yi's body finally gave up. But the death of their victim didn't bring them to their senses. In fact, what they did next shocked even the most veteran investigators. Their only concern was the evidence. In the small bathroom of the flat, they began the gruesome task of making Fan disappear. Most of her remains were disposed of in the communal trash, lost forever in the city's landfills. But they had a problem with the skull, and this is where the Hello Kitty doll comes in. In a moment of bizarre, drug-induced logic, they ripped open the plushie, stuffed the skull inside, and crudely sewed it back together. They left the doll on a shelf, a silent, smiling witness to the horror. For weeks, no one knew what was sitting inside it. They eventually abandoned the apartment, leaving the doll with the secret behind in the shadows. The trial in the year 2000 was a media frenzy, but it ended in a way that many find impossible to accept. Because the body had been so thoroughly destroyed, medical examiners couldn't prove the exact cause of death. There was a gap in the law that would ultimately decide their fate, not because they didn't do it, but because the law couldn't prove the specific intent to kill. In the end, they were found guilty of manslaughter, not murder. Judge Peter Nguyen was visibly shaken, sentencing all three to life, stating he had never seen such depravity and callousness. But years later, a retrial changed everything for one of the men. Leung Shing-cho's sentence was reduced to 18 years. Today, he is likely a free man, walking the same streets where Fan Man-yi once dreamed of a better life. The Hello Kitty murder is a case that stays with you. It's a reminder of how thin the line is between a civilized society and pure chaos. Fan Man-yi wasn't just a name in a case file. She was a person who deserved so much more than the 30 days of hell she was given. If you found this deep dive important, please hit the like button. It helps ensure that stories like Fan's aren't forgotten. What do you think about the verdict? Does it sit right with you that one of these men could be free today? Let me know in the comments, and if you're new here, subscribe and turn on the bell. Stay safe, because not every horror story is fiction.